And where down we go, 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 go. Oh, where down we go, 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 go. So where down we go, way down we go.
You're listening to The Come Up. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on The Come Up, a podcast created to showcase the talents and lives of the best young players on the rise. With me, I have Nate Thompson and Jacob Johnson. I am Michael Gross, and today we bring on right-handed pitcher in the Detroit Tigers farm system. He pitched at Siena College and made it all the way to rookie ball in the Gulf Coast League, and here today is Brendan White. Welcome to The Come Up, Brendan.
What's up, guys? How's everything going?
Pretty good. Nice to have you on here.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Of course, first and foremost, baseball is in fact back. It's spring training. We're getting back to the swing of things, and you've been away from the game a lot longer than many others have. But tell me about spring for you. How does your training differ, considering you aren't down in the Grapefruit League working out with the team in Florida?
Yeah, so the schedule that I'm on right now is something that I'm trying to keep as consistent as possible since they began playing games back at the end of February. So I've tried to stay on a consistent schedule where I'm facing live batters. I'm throwing, multiple bullpens per week to stay fresh, to make sure that my arm is in shape and in good condition. And so I've been pretty much on a similar schedule, a little bit less rigorous because obviously I'm not playing any games. Being up in New York with the snow in February and then early March, wasn't able to get outside, but facing guys live on the weekends, once a week was able to get all my work done. And I have this one more week coming up actually tomorrow. And then I'm flying out on Wednesday. So a little bit of fine tuning right now. And I feel ready to go. I've been anxious for a little bit now. It's been a long year. So body's feeling good and I'm ready to head out to Florida.
What have you worked on most during this off season to try and tweak and everything?
Yeah, I usually attack my off season in a couple different categories. So at the end of each year, I kind of go through like a full analysis and a self-assessment of what I thought I did well when it came to my strength training. So any lifting that I did, my conditioning. So like circuit training, what my running was like, how I did with that. And then my throwing in terms of mechanics. And then it comes down to like my pitch frequencies and the types of pitches I'm throwing, how often I'm throwing them, and then my nutrition. And so I kind of break everything down in each category. And so I always try and build upon what I find was lacking or just something I needed to continue to build upon. So there's always something that I'm doing. So mechanically, I just needed to continue to explode through home plate. I kind of sometimes would find myself not really flying over and really exploding to get home. So that's something I've really been working on. And then really kind of working on my pitch frequencies, mixing in a changeup a little bit more often. I throw a sinker and a four seam. So finding out where those play best in the strike zone and being able to go out and execute those pitches.
Yeah, and you had a lot of time to go out and do that too, considering you had a major extended off season that was also probably unwanted. But during last year, you didn't get to have that season, right? The whole minor league system pretty much shut down, and there was only really that alternate training site. But I wanted to ask sort of a twofold question here. How much did you really miss the game during the stoppage due to COVID-19? And how worried were you actually when you heard about the minor league system and the minor league teams being shut down and cut in early February?
It was definitely a difficult time, especially coming right, for everybody, just coming right out of it. Everybody has all these expectations and, plans on how they're going to spend their year, and obviously completely unprecedented. So nobody knew what to expect. But honestly, a lot of the things that I've learned from my coaches and from a lot of the books that I've read is, it's all about how you perceive the situation and how you go about taking advantage of the situation that you're in. And so the way
Brendan, I think we lost you.
I saw it
here.
was, okay, well, we have.
Oh, there he is. All right.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, all good.
All So let's see. So where was I? Pretty much, yeah. So it's all about how you perceive the situation. And so right after everything got canceled and we knew that we weren't going to be playing, I figured, well, I got to figure out a way to make sure that I'm in a spot to get myself better. And so for me, that was moving into my buddy's house in Hampton, Georgia, because New York, for where I was, or where I'm from, was the hot spot at the time. So all the gyms were shut down, all the facilities were closed, all the fields were closed. So I figured that was not a good spot to go home and get all my work done. So I went down to Georgia and I was there for a couple months where they pretty much were very open with everything, and we didn't really have any issues down there. So I just kind of took that situation and ran with it to spend the whole year developing instead of actually taking time off and quarantining and stuff. I never really went through that.
All right, so let's jump back to your childhood. Were you a multi-sport athlete growing up? Because I know coaches preach this like no other.
Yeah, I was not. I mean, in terms of like competitive play and being structured like on a team and stuff, I was not. I was a big skateboarder and snowboarder when playing baseball. But I mean, I would play football in the backyard. I'd always throw a football. I never really played too much basketball, but I mean, I was always athletic. Like I was always doing something. But for me, it was since I was 4 years old, I knew that baseball was something that I wanted to do. And pretty much I'd be playing wiffle ball. And if I wasn't playing wiffle ball, I'd be playing in a game. And so I eventually had to stop skateboarding and stop snowboarding just because of injuries. And I didn't want to risk me not being able to play baseball if I got hurt doing that. So I pretty much just consider myself like a one sport athlete, but I always had like a diverse, I guess, array of like movements and different things that I was doing.
I had a quick follow up to that real quick. You mentioned wiffle ball. As Nate knows, I'm a very competitive wiffle ball player. I have about 7 or 8 pitches in the arsenal, and they all work. Were you that competitive when you were younger, with wiffle ball and everything, or was it just more for fun?
No, I was very competitive. Everything that I do, I needed to go and win. That was even now, I was actually just taking a lot of heat for this a couple of weeks ago. We were playing board games one Saturday night, and I was losing. Everybody could tell I was not okay with losing, and not that I was really showing it. I thought I was hiding it pretty well, but they were like, they knew that I was not happy with the situation, and so whenever I'm playing a game, no matter what it is, I got to come out on top.
Of course.
So, when you started playing baseball, was there a certain player that you fell in love that made you fall in love with the game? Was it a parent? Was it a relative that really helped you fall in love with it?
My favorite pitcher, and it's kind of doesn't, I guess, really make sense because I'm a righty, but my favorite pitcher was Andy Pettitte. I was a big Yankee fan growing up, and Andy Pettitte was always a big game pitcher for the Yankees. And, he has a whole bunch of records for, in the postseason. So he was a guy who's always clutch and, always around. So I loved watching him throw, and I always tried to emulate how he did things. And I eventually ended up getting like his autograph. And so that meant everything to me. And so as a pitcher, I always wanted to be Andy Pettitte. But I also played shortstop, and obviously Derek Jeter was always around. So that was, two of the greatest Yankees, in my opinion, 2 of the greatest Yankees. And, I was young enough to watch them as I was growing up. So it was, those 2 guys really helped shape me from an early stage.
Talk about Andy Pettitte and you shaping your game around it. Mm-hmm. In high school, you were the 2016 New York State Class AA 5th-team All-Star and posted a 7-1 record with a 1.02 ERA with 53 strikeouts and 55 innings. That's crazy, especially in AA. Yeah, Class AA, a 1.02 ERA is something phenomenal that you don't see often, really. Is that because you modeled your game after Andy Pettitte?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that Andy Pettitte did, which I loved, was having a big curveball. And growing up, I started throwing a curveball. I was a little bit younger than what most coaches recommend throwing a curveball. I was probably around 10, but I always saw Andy Pettitte throwing it. And so I started to throw it pretty consistently, and I would get outs. And so leading into high school, that was my best out pitch. I had a decent fastball, but my curveball was the pitch that I wanted to go to get a swing and miss or to get some weak contact and stuff. So, I would say the curveball was the biggest aspect I took from Andy Pettit's game and something that I was able to implement.
I mean, especially when you're looking at the high school level, not a lot of kids you're going to be facing two seams, change up fastballs right down. If you have a really nasty curveball and it can work, then you seem to be getting a lot of outs with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was definitely my go-to pitch whenever if I was in a big spot, because I was very comfortable throwing it no matter like really what the count was. So it was something that I knew I could rely on. And, at the high school level, you might have a couple really good hitters at the top, but, the lineup isn't as deep. And so, being able to throw that curveball to whoever really helped me be successful in high school.
So coming out of college, we know you went to Siena. What other colleges were you interested in? What other colleges were interested in you? And were there any other schools that like it was really close, but you ended up deciding with Siena?
Yeah, so it actually came right down to the wire, and it's funny that you brought up I was 7-1, and my one loss that year was I had 3 coaches there, and it was Binghamton, Hartford, and Siena. Well, Siena wasn't actually. Siena had given me an offer the week before, but Binghamton and Hartford were there, and they had wanted to see me in game, but they had spoken a high game about some of the opportunities I could have in terms of a scholarship and going to that program. So I didn't commit to Siena right away. And so I wanted to see what the offers or the opportunity I would have had at Binghamton and Hartford were before I made that decision to go to Siena. And so the one loss I had that year was the game that those coaches were there. And so I ended up not getting the opportunity or the offer or the opportunity that I was looking for. And so based on that, I chose Siena.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw out a lot of stats here, and I don't want it to be like daunting or anything. But you threw both of Siena's complete games in your freshman year, right, in 2017, and you accounted for the team's lone shutout there as a freshman. Sophomore year, you struggled a little bit in terms of runs and walks, but still you threw 90 innings, 90 and a third, which is third innings pitch in the MAC. You started 16 games, you had 4 complete games. 3-9 record, not the record's not a huge deal anymore in baseball. I mean, just look at Jacob deGrom, right? But you pitched well, right? 61 strikeouts and 18 walks there. But then your junior year, So your junior year, you 3 complete games in a row, 20 innings pitched, 2-1 on the year, but you only gave up the 1 earned, right? So there's 16 Ks, 6 complete games total. Was this the year where you sort of transitioned from a starting pitcher to maybe more of a bullpen guy? Because I feel like you started a lot more games and you pitched a lot more innings in your sophomore year than your junior year as well. And tell me about that transition too.
Right. So, well, I think the stats may have been a little mixed up because I had thrown another 90 innings my junior year. I was a 3-year starter. So I threw our Saturday game. So, but honestly, the biggest difference between my sophomore year and my junior year, because like you said, it was a big jump in statistics. And so I had developed a slider as a better put away pitch. So going back to the curveball, that was a pitch that I was able to drop into counts early, but against college hitters, I wasn't able to get as much swing and miss. And so I needed a more firm out pitch to try and get some guys out. And so I had gone the summer of 2018, the summer of my sophomore year, into the Cape Cod League with the Wareham Gatemen. And my goal in mind was to develop an out pitch to get, because these are some of the best players in college baseball, to figure out a pitch to get these guys out. And so a slider was something that I was able to develop. And I first started throwing it there, saw some success, and brought that back into school my junior year. And so that really became my favorite pitch, and it still is my favorite pitch. Going into my junior year, I was able to really boost up my strikeout numbers and really reduce the amount of contact or overall like hard contact I was giving up because I would throw that pitch more often in these counts. And so the slider was like my biggest piece of the difference between my sophomore and junior year. And I pretty much say that it's the reason I got drafted, because that pitch was helped me push into the draft and help me get selected.
Going back to, you just mentioned the Cape Cod League. How, as a player, does it feel when you're going like team to team just to improve, continue to play, like teammates wise? Is that a lot of fun, just meeting brand new players, meeting a bunch of guys that, you never would have met if you didn't play on that team? How does that, correlate to what you're doing now for the Tigers?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a ton of fun. I always try and recommend guys to go and live away from home and go experience, if you're playing summer ball and if you're playing baseball in college and you have the opportunity to play college summer ball, I always tell guys to go and live away from home, because you're going to meet a group of guys, like you said, that you never would have met before, from different schools from all over the country. And it's just experiences and friendships and memories that, you carry with you. And the biggest thing that I noticed was there's some crazy statistic from the Cape team that I had played on, and it was like 30 guys out of the 37 on the roster ended up getting drafted. So there was a vast majority of that team entered pro ball. And so now I have a whole bunch of friends that, I made years ago in a whole bunch of different organizations. And the organization with the Tigers, we actually had 4 players drafted from that same Cape team. So, going in, I had 4 people that I had already, met and played with before and, had experiences with. So it's a lot of fun, and you start to really even meet more people, and it's a lot of fun.
And you never know, one of those guys, like you just said, 4 guys in the 30 out of the 37 or something like that were drafted with you. You never know when of those next players are going to be that big guy that you see in the MLB. And, you could say, oh, well, I played on my Cape Cod League with him.
Yeah. The biggest guy, or the guy that had gotten taken the highest with us, was Andrew Vaughn. And I know he's on the cusp of the big leagues right now. And, he was a blast to watch. He was hitting the ball really hard all over the place and all the time. You see him on games, on TV and spring training games, and it's weird. It's kind of like, it's like a weird feeling. You're like, I wish I wasn't watching you play on TV, but like you're happy for happy for those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, talking about being drafted, you had 12 complete games in your college career at Siena, right?
Or some, yeah, I'm not sure the actual number, but yeah.
That's crazy. So obviously, you're an accuracy guy. We can tell. You limit your walks. Your strikeouts are average, maybe above average for the innings that you do.
Right.
You've got a little zip behind your pitches. Do you think that these 12 complete games in your college career at the D1 level helped your draft resume?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. It's one of those things where it doesn't hurt to have more complete games on the record. To me, it was just something. When I started the game, my intention was to finish it. My intention was to complete it and hopefully come away with a W. Just like I said, the whole goal was to try and finish games and to win. And so I always felt like I was the best pitcher on the mound and the best guy for the job. And so, I was going to fight to keep myself in the game and to try and finish these games.
So staying with like the college theme for a couple more, Coach Rossi was your coach at Siena College, and he spoke really highly of you. We were going through some articles and we found this quote. It said, quote, "Brendan had a quality year. Even though it didn't equate to wins, he needs to continue the outstanding work ethic, and he will be counted on heavily to continue to supply quality innings." What impact has he sort of had on your life, and how much did he help you going through that draft process? And you mentioned your slider. How much did he help you getting that to work as well?
Yeah, he was absolutely instrumental in helping me with the draft process and helping me understand how things were going to go, the conversations that were going to be had, the timeline for everything, because I believe this is his 53rd or 54th year of coaching college baseball, and which is, I believe he's the longest tenured head coach in college baseball right now. And so he's been through it before, many, many times. And so coming into college and starting that process, I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know what it was like, what information did I need to have locked down, and how did I need to speak. And so he took me through this whole process of the things that I needed to say, how I needed to go about my business, the timeline of when teams are going to start reaching out. when phone calls are going to happen. And so he was really able to help, or he really helped me be able to map out my plan or what I should expect. And if I was on the right track, what I was, if I was doing it. And so he also helped relay information when teams were were starting to contact him about whether or not I'd want to pursue the draft or if I was going to stay in school. And so it was a lot of fun, after every outing on Saturday, Monday morning, I would show up in his office and say, all right, well, who talked to you? Are there any other teams on board? What are scouts saying? What are scouts thinking? And what do you think? And so he really helped kind of shape the way I was thinking and going about it. And he really he helped keep me focused during the whole draft.
Wait, hold up. So I got a follow up for it. I know you were the 26th round. Were there any other teams that like consulted you about you being drafted to them?
Yeah, I had talked to about 27 of the 30. There were a few that I hadn't talked to, but there was that day there were about 8 calls for that round or the round after. And so I had an agent at the time who was taking most of those calls. And it's actually a pretty funny story about the Tigers. They called the wrong agent. And so that agent couldn't represent me. And so that guy texted me and say, hey, the Tigers just called me, but I can't represent you. So you should probably give him a call. I said, okay, I'll call. So he sent me the number and I called the Tigers. It wasn't that exact moment. We had a couple more phone calls throughout the course of the day before everything went down, but I was the one who initiated the first call.
It doesn't happen often, right? Obviously the irony, right? It doesn't happen often.
Yeah, that was telling, a whole bunch of at the facility that I'm at, I'm with a bunch of other pro guys. And so we always share different stories about crazy things that happened and, how the draft worked and what we all thought. And so, yeah, that's my crazy draft story. I had to call the team for it.
So today while I was going through Instagram, I saw your story and I saw that you had the Velo University, which was something I hadn't heard of. So I clicked on it and I started going through it, and it looks like it's not only you, but there's a pro pitcher from the Diamondbacks there. I believe there was one from the Pirates as well. How has that impacted you that you're not only it's not just you working by yourself with a coach, there's other pro guys there that are also putting in the work?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest reasons why I had made my switch from the facility I was originally at to Velo U. And so I had known some guys who were going there, and so I had heard some good things, and pretty much I wanted to be surrounded by other professional athletes who were going to be chasing the same dreams and the same goals that I had. And so having a training partner is really important for this. As an athlete, you want somebody who, you can, talk smack to and have you, push each other and have somebody you can throw with every day. And so I figured that would be the best opportunity in my area to find a couple different guys or one guy that I could train with. And turns out there was a bunch of different guys that I was able to work with and still work with. And unfortunately this week, not unfortunately, everybody's finally flying out to camp and stuff. So the group is starting to break up, but it's been a lot of fun, and it's awesome to have all these guys around.
And when I was scrolling through their page, I saw there was the video of you doing showing how you threw your 2-seamer. So then I went and looked up, and your 2-seamer has gotten people to look very silly at the plate. How do you throw that different from some other people? I know like it comes down bearing on the right-handed hitter, but it just looks like it has a different kind of tone or movement to it.
Yeah, my sinker is one of those pitches that I don't know why. I don't necessarily understand why it does what it does. I have some understanding of why it works, and all I know is in the video I talked about shifting the axis a little bit, just kind of rotating the baseball. And I noticed that's where I had the best movement. It had the best depth, and it had the most run. And so I kind of just went with that. It's something that I personally just kind of found by myself, just throwing. And I have seen a whole bunch of videos of the way different guys are comfortable throwing these pitches, because comfort's really the most important thing. If you're not comfortable with a grip, are you really going to trust it? And I was completely confident in my grip. And so it was something I've just continued to work on. And it's one of those pitches that I really enjoy throwing.
So I'm looking at your ProspectsLive account through the Detroit Tigers. And in your report, it says the fastball sits at 93, 94, tops at 95, Modest life elsewhere in the zone. It's flat, black sink, mostly straight, occasionally rides up. Do you think Velo U has helped change that to where your fastball is now going to be elite and move like crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I I sure hope so. Yeah, it's a tough report, but it's for me, it's fun to hear. Like, it's fun to hear the way guys or scouts or whoever's writing the article, looks at your stuff, and so it's something that I look at and I try and take a realistic approach. Like, is this accurate? Is this something that I need to work on, or is this something that I need to just keep my mind away from? I mean, personally, I'm confident enough where I can look at that, I can laugh it off, and it doesn't really stick with me.
Mhm.
Some people can take it to heart or take it a little bit personally, and get offended or get upset or not happy with what they're reading. And so it didn't really matter to me. I was like, I'm gonna go about my business the way I know that I can get outs, and so I'm gonna continue to refine my arsenal and to try and make it as elite as possible. And so meeting or working with the guys at Velo U, I was able to help identify things that I was good at and things that I need to work on. And so these past couple months, I've been attacking my flaws, and hopefully, well, I've been seeing success now of those improvements being made.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it.
So you really seem like the type of athlete that, you read something like that and you use it as motivation. Has that how you have always been when you get critics? And I know, like you just said, athletes take it to heart, but you seem like you read that and you use it as motivation to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been kind of a smaller guy, and so growing up, I had a lot of doubters and a lot of critics, and there have been times where I've been cut from teams for being too small or not getting offers and opportunities that I felt like I was good enough to perform at or to be at. And so it was something that I used that fuel, for the fire, and just kind of put my nose down and just tried grinding to prove those guys wrong, but to also, more importantly, to prove myself right, that those guys were wrong and that I really do have it in me, and I can do it, and I can take care of business the way I know how.
Yeah, and you've been taking care of business your entire teenage life, and now you finally proved yourself right, is how we're gonna say it. And you've gotten to the level of being drafted, and obviously, like everybody, everybody wants to make it to that level, and everybody's still got work to do as they get there. But let's just talk about life so far since you've been drafted. I know it's around 2 years or so, or somewhere around there. But just talk to me about how your life has sort of changed a little bit, knowing that you are now playing in the Detroit Tiger system.
Yeah, it's been something that obviously everybody dreams about growing up, and so all throughout college and all throughout high school, I've been on a pretty similar schedule and format as to what I am now, except now I don't have school that I need to worry about. So now I always, in college, you really had to make sure that you were on top of a schedule and really staying organized, because if you weren't, you were gonna miss homework or you were gonna lose some sleep. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice anything. I'm somebody who needs to get everything done and make sure that everything's I'm on top of everything. And so now that I don't have the school aspect to worry about, I can really spend more time overall training. Like this off season, I've added in a couple more workouts to my day, and spending more time focusing on my nutrition, the types of food that I'm eating, when I'm eating, and how often. And so it's a lot less stressful than in college, because this is all that I need to focus on. So life is what almost pretty much what I always wanted it to be, just baseball. So it's been awesome.
So you're down in Florida in 2019. Did you start on the east or the west side? I can't remember.
Yeah, so I spent the first month and a half ish on the east side, and then for the last couple of weeks I went to the west. And so for the first month I was closing, and then spent a couple of weeks starting, and then on the west I was also starting. So I pretty much spent the summer split between closing and then starting games.
Yeah. So then when you went to the west side, you got exponentially better. It was like night and day. Granted, you had about like 10 more outings than you did on the east, but it was like night and day. What what really, was your mindset going in? Because, it's a whole lot different than even college at the D1 level, because all these guys are technically, they're professionals. And so you go in, what's the mindset when you go into these games, these big starts here in rookie ball?
Yeah, it's the biggest focus is to not let anything get too far ahead of you, or not to try and treat anybody like they're different. I mean, there's a reason that, you were drafted and you're put on these teams, and it's because these scouts and the people who had drafted you believe that you can go and get outs at this level. As a pitcher, I can go and get outs at this level. And so I had confidence in myself to be able to get guys out. There's always a period in which you're trying to learn as much as you can and understand. I mean, you're thrown into an environment in which you don't know anybody. So there is like an adjustment period for things, but I had confidence in myself to get these guys out. I knew that I had the pitches to go up and do it. And I knew I had a good process and routine to make sure that I was prepared for every outing. And so that was really important for me. Yeah.
But you brought up routine. You're a pitcher. Do you have a pregame ritual or routine that you go through for every game?
Yeah. In terms of a morning routine, it all really depends on where I am and I guess the situation, whether I'm home or away or the game's home or away. It all really depends. But in terms of getting onto the field, I do the same thing every day. Even when I'm even on days that I'm not pitching, like just before warm-ups and before catch play, and before I go through the same warm-up routine just to get my body hot, my body ready to go before I even pick up a baseball. And so I have I really understand my routine and how long it takes and exactly what I need to do in order to get myself ready to go. And so it's something that going into a start day, it helps get me mentally locked in and confident in myself that I'm prepared to go out and work and, not have to think about injury or if my arm's feeling okay, because I know that I've put in the work throughout the week, but also right before leading up to it, that I was going to stay healthy and be ready to go.
So last question here, and then we're going to let you get going. So you said you grew up as a Yankees fan. Is there any other sports that, I know you said you didn't play, but that you, that you follow football wise, basketball?
Yeah, football. I'm still a Giants fan. I mean, I don't have any affiliations now for anybody else, right? So I don't have to worry about being a fan for any other team. So I'm still a Giants fan. But my pitching coach is also he's also the quarterback coach for Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Dak Prescott and a few of the other guys. And so I kind of had a little bit less, and Eli was one of those guys a couple of years ago. And so I kind of had a little bit less of rooting for teams and more kind of rooting for guys and seeing what they were doing. And, I'd been on the field a couple of times, throughout the past couple of years where there had been quarterbacks. And so, those have been people that I enjoy following and seeing what they're doing. And because I know that what they're doing to prepare themselves is very similar to what I'm doing to prepare myself. And so it's fun to see those guys be successful and know that their process is very similar to my process. So it's a lot of fun to go out and watch those guys. But yeah,
it's incredible.
I'm a Giants fan.
Yeah, that's incredible that your pitching coach is also the quarterback coach for those guys in the offseason. That's incredible. Brendan, thank you so much for joining us on the Come Up. I really appreciate you coming on and telling us about your life and your story and where you are now. And good luck to you. You're going to be hopefully, in Class A soon and potentially moving up in the world.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys. It was fun.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you so much. Once again, with Jake Johnson and Nate Thompson, I am Michael Gross saying so long and see you on the next episode of The Come Up.